I want you to imagine this. You're a brand new paranormal investigator. You've watched all of the TV shows. You've read all of the biographies. You follow all of the big stars on Twitter. You've got a brand new location lined up. You've talked to all of the tour guides. What next? So many of these TV shows happen to have so many different pieces of equipment. Things that can show what ghosts look like in the dark, can show what the heartbeat of a squirrel over there is, and they can see through walls and show where a spirit's farted 20 years ago. With so much equipment floating around on the market and everyone using them on television, what the hell are you supposed to actually use when you head out in the field? That's okay, because I'm here to tell you the top 3 pieces of equipment that I believe a paranormal investigator should be on the field with, which every fledgling paranormal investigator should probably start out with, because they are 3 of the most important pieces of equipment that you will ever use in your investigating life, which is hopefully quite a long life. Unless you want to be an investigating ghost, because that would be really cool.
Are you afraid of the dark? Are you scared?
One of the funny things is that in our team, we have this rule that if one of us dies, we've each got code words to come back as. So when we're doing an EVP session, if someone comes through and says the word boobs, well, then we know that it's Daz. And if something comes through and it sounds like a fart, it's probably gonna be me. Anyway, these are my 3 pieces of equipment that a fledgling paranormal investigator should get, and 3 of the most important pieces of equipment that any paranormal investigator should have. So the first piece of equipment that you're going to want to need is a voice recorder. Now, ironically, I can't find my voice recorders. I have 2 of them. I have an Olympus voice recorder and a H4n. Obviously, they're not quite in the same league as each other. My Olympus is a small $100 voice recorder that I got from JB Hi-Fi a few years ago. But funnily enough, it's actually the one that I've caught the most on. My H4n I got for Christmas, not last year, but the year before, from my parents. Oh my god, I love my parents. And it's really, really good, but not in the same way that my little Olympus is. So although I may get more possible EVPs on my little Olympus, I do actually find that the H4n is a lot clearer, obviously because it costs more money, but it's also really good to have going the same time as the Olympus, so that if I hear something on the Olympus, if I listen to the same timestamp on the H4n, I've got more chance of hearing what that thing really was. Say for example, if I hear something that sounds like a voice on the Olympus, I'll listen to that same timestamp on the H4n and find out that it's actually someone moving a piece of clothing, someone's stomach grumbling, which happens a lot, or maybe a gust of wind. Now, you may find that a lot of people will actually recommend online to get cheaper voice recorders because they'll say, oh yeah, you know, you get more EVPs. No. The reason why you get more supposed EVPs is because they're a lower quality, which means they have more white noise and they're not as sensitive, which means that you're more likely to get something that's kind of like a half noise that's garbled through. And when your ears hear it, your ears are going to make sense of whatever comes through. That's called audible pareidolia. It's very, very common in the paranormal field, and the amount of times I have had people send me supposed EVPs that are actually just audible pareidolia is ridiculous. Not that I'm saying that people shouldn't send me EVPs, because it's really cool and I love hearing everyone's stuff and I love listening to it and it's all great. However, I highly suggest don't just get the cheap voice recorders, get an expensive one as well. Look, you're doing this because it's a passion. If it was basketball, you'd get a really good $300 pair of basketball shoes. Obviously, you might not get that $300 pair when you're getting ready for all this stuff, but it's an investment. If you can spend that much on a pair of shoes and that's your hobby, don't feel bad about spending $400 on a really good voice recorder. It's going to mean that you're going to get so much more interesting stuff and you're going to be able to back it up. Imagine if you got something that was an EVP that came up on both your cheap recorder and your expensive recorder. There's going to be some pretty cool evidence there, assuming that, you know, there's not other people in the room and things like that. Not only that, but having a voice recorder means that you can actually vocally record personal experiences as they happen to you, which is actually really, really useful. You can have it recording whilst you're walking around, in between EVP sessions, in between experiments, and it can just provide you a little bit more recorded data, because you can never have too much recorded data, ever. That's a rule. Anyway, next thing. Item number 2 that you should always have carrying with you is a notebook and a pen. Or pencil, in this case. You have no idea how little pens there are in my house. So for obvious reasons, having a notebook and a pencil with you is very, very useful. You can use it to quickly jot down times, you can use it to quickly jot down personal experiences, possible evidence, so that later on when you're reviewing all of your footage or all of your audio, you know exactly what time things happened and what happened. Now, if everyone in your team carries a notebook and a pen, then that means that, say for instance, Team A thought that they heard a scream somewhere at like 9:03. Team B discovered that there was a rat in one of the cells. One of the guests screamed. Luckily, they wrote it down because that happened. Team A and Team B then compare their notebooks and find out that the scream that Team A heard wasn't actually paranormal and it was just Team B. The leader of Team A then proceeds to hit the leader of Team B over the back of the head, and all is right in the world. So my third piece of equipment, I don't know, I was thinking about putting it in, I was thinking about not putting it in, but I'll explain why in a sec. The third piece of equipment is, if you're a skeptic like I am, you wouldn't really carry this piece of equipment, but it's interesting to have around and can be used to corroborate certain things that may happen. So my third piece of equipment is an EMF meter. Stay with me. I don't know whose idea it was that EMF fluctuations mean, oh my god, there's a ghost. Like, I don't know who suddenly made that rule, but it's pretty much been used by everyone in the paranormal field. Where EMF fluctuations occur, paranormal things tend to happen. Or things that are perceived as paranormal. I don't want to get in it too much, otherwise I'll end up talking myself in circles. So you can buy a cheap K2 meter online for maybe, I think about 30 or 40 bucks. I haven't checked how much they are on eBay. My team also sells paranormal equipment, so we don't really have to buy it ourselves. However, you can pick up a hot pink rook. It's more of a fashion statement than anything else because it's obviously the best color. However, you can just set this up and it becomes kind of like a set and forget thing. You can be asking questions, you can be using it as a trigger object. You can have it set next to other trigger objects and see what happens. Now, the reason why I use a rook as opposed to a traditional K2 meter is that this has actually been tuned to not pick up mobile phones. Yes, I am recording on my mobile phone if you didn't know this already. Now, speaking from a non-paranormal point of view, EMF meters are still really good to have around with you. You can use them to do basic sweeps of whatever room that you might be conducting your experiments in. For example, if there's lots of bad wiring, if there's lots of interference, that's going to cause biological interference, which I know sounds really airy-fairy and out there, but no, really, we can pick up on these things. That's why basements feel creepy. That's why people don't like hanging around in high voltage areas, because it makes our brains feel weird. So if you have an EMF meter, You can do the sweep, figure out where your high voltage places are or where your high EMF places are, and then later on if someone says that they're feeling particularly creepy or they're getting a bit of a headache, well then you know that that's probably got something to do with the fact that there's a lot of wiring or there's a lot of energy running around the building, like literal electronic energy, not just like energy. Now, I suppose my unofficial fourth thing that you should always have with you is your common sense. Please, people. Common sense. In here. Every time something happens, you can't just automatically go, oh my god, it's paranormal. Otherwise, you might as well find yourself a good producer because you are basically a reality TV show. That's not how this thing works. You might go hours in a location and not get anything happening whatsoever. Trust me. I do this once a fortnight in regular places and we might get 2 pieces of possibly paranormal things happening. Things that we can't debunk easily. Like if we thought far enough, they'd probably be debunked, but oh god, my nose is itchy. The things that they show you on the TV shows are either highly overproduced, staged, or have happened in the course of them being there for quite a few days. You know, when the TAPS team say that they've been in a location overnight, it's not just one night. They might spend 3 or 4 days filming. They don't just have them in the house, they have an entire team of producers and cameramen and script writers, and everyone's in this building. So please don't make the mistake of thinking that if something unseen or unexplained happens that it's automatically paranormal. Every time something happens, think to yourself, okay, what are the logical explanations? If that door opens, was it the wind? Is there someone on the other side of that door? Okay, if it wasn't the wind, what else could it be? Look at all of the things that we know that it is not before we look at all of the things that it could be. Anyway, as always, if you have any questions or comments or things that you like to use when you're on a paranormal investigation, or if you have any questions about any of the pieces of equipment that I've spoken about, drop them in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell so you know when new videos are up. Bye!